We do not expect this generation of kids now, the ones born after 2000, to outlive their parents.
That's already going on right now in Louisiana.
It's going on all over. It isn't just there.
I do direct patient care, and I get all their labs, and I do diet therapy with them. And so, of course, vitamin D, they'll send them to me and say, hey, let's get their vitamin D intake up. You can't do it with food.
What's the situation with vitamin D and the people that come in here?
We're finding now that about 90% deficiency rates.
Because when they come in, it is, some of them are so sick they can hardly walk through the door. And it's chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, heavy metal toxicity, environmental illness, and whatever other label you want to put on it. Almost every single one of them is deficient in vitamin D and iodine.
That's right.
And who are you and what do you do?
Church.
I am a physician, internal medicine, alternative care.
You know, every year we do a big health fair here and check people's blood work. And so I've been doing that for, maybe 8 years or so. So, that's maybe 600 people. I've probably had 3, maybe 4 people, certainly you can count on one hand out of that 600 the amount of people that have had a normal vitamin D level.
Over the past probably 2 years, I have tested several hundred people for iodine. Only 4 have come back normal.
Same story in Amarillo. Out of 600 people, 4 were normal for vitamin D and iodine. 4 out of 600.
Now, I probably had 6 to 8 that were normal in vitamin D.
Every patient that I've seen that has had their vitamin D level checked has been low. It doesn't matter whether they're in the sun, out of the sun, use sunscreen, don't use sunscreen, whether they're fair skin, dark skin, it doesn't matter. And most of them have been severely low. A level of around 11 to 13 is generally what I see, which is severely low. And I've never yet seen a patient check that did not have a normal, or that did have a normal vitamin D level. So,
explain vitamin D as a hormone and explain how it is the system driver basically and what can go wrong if that's not in our bodies.
Well, it controls many of your functions.
But is it a vitamin?
No, it is a vitamin that acts as a hormone, which some of your vitamins do. So it's kind of both, but it's involved in bone formation. Without vitamin D, you're not going to lay down bone. In fact, you'll break down bone. It's involved in so many processes that if you don't have it, you're going to be very sick. And I think that's
And in speaking with the former nutritionist and in reviewing the former reports, just even 15 to 18 years ago, maybe 1 out of every 100 clients had any sort of toxic metal or any toxicity. Now we have 99 out of 100 with toxic levels of either lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, or aluminum, or the combination of both.
Another example of untold news or public information which the public needs to know about to make good decisions. This is a NOAA National Weather Service website. Seems innocuous, but the unspoken reality is in the term base reflectivity, seen on this site. No public explanations, only those allowed and knowing know that this means amount of sunlight reflected by aerial sprayed reflective material that shows up in our weather radar, yet local stations report real clouds and natural rain. Nothing is farther than the truth in these skies. Some weathermen now call the white haze skies filtered sunlight, but we are not told what the filter is.
I think that they're trying to begin to put it out to the public because they've been experimenting on it for a long time and they want to do more experiments and they need the funding.
Solar geoengineering is the idea that you could, in principle, reduce the rate of climate change or reverse it by making the Earth more reflective, by reflecting away more sunlight, for example, by putting reflective particles, aerosol pollution, if you like, in the upper atmosphere. You could put fine particles, say sulfuric acid particles, sulfates, into the upper atmosphere, the stratosphere, where they reflect away sunlight and cool the planet. And I know for certain that that will work. Not that there aren't side effects, but I know for certain it will work. And the reason is it's been done. There's no big mystery about it. There's lots of mystery in the details, and there's some bad side effects, like it partially destroys the ozone layer, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it clearly cools down. And one other thing, it's fast. There's no question that large-scale climate engineering is untested and dangerous. We've mostly thought about sulfur, and there's a lot of good reasons to think about sulfur, because sulfur is what nature does. Nevertheless, there might be some good reasons to think about alumina. It turns out, first of all, there's been a lot of work on the environmental consequences of alumina in the stratosphere. The big deal really is that alumina has 4 times the volumetric rate of forcing for small particles as does sulfur. And that means you have 4 times less surface area for the same rate of forcing. And this is a much bigger deal. You have roughly 16 times less the coagulation rate. And that's the thing that really drives removal. So you could get away, we think, with much smaller mass fluxes. But we haven't run those studies yet, so that might be wrong.
I began to look at, was there anything showing up in all the drinking water spikes across California on a pretty consistent level? What I discovered was that during the course of the year, starting in 1990, no less, that the water sources were all registering unusual spikes, that somebody somewhere was beginning to use inordinate amounts of arsenic, barium, aluminum, calcium, manganese, magnesium, and that all of these things, lead, iron, were all spiking at the same time. Why are these spikes occurring in almost all the drinking water sources all at the same time? And what we discovered is that the spiking from the California Air Resources Board air tests were also spiking in the same years and at the same time, and coordinated with the spikings in the water supply, which led us to believe that this was something that was airborne and had to be hitting us from the air.
The little picture is from a nanofabrication study, which shows you can make very high quality, and do this in just a jet in a very simple way, make high quality alumina particles just by spraying aluminum vapor out, which oxidizes. So it's certainly in principle possible to do that, and there's a big literature that's already looked at that. And you could do that by either building new versions of these aircraft or even re-engineering existing aircraft. So there's some ideas of that. So you go to an engineering firm and you want this done. They don't say this is hard or unusual. They say, okay, yes, we'll do it. Aerosol geoengineering looks like it is so cheap that the cost is basically not going to be an issue. That means that implementation decisions will be risk-to-risk decisions. The risk of doing it against the risk of not doing it. And it makes the problem of how we govern it fundamentally harder and different and novel. So I've told you that it's cheap to deliver materials to the stratosphere, and I'm convinced that's true. I don't think that will change. But I think the more we do research, the less easy this will look, the more complicated the environmental effects will look. And that's a good thing, because right now it looks too easy. So I think that if we do more research, we're likely to find out that it's harder and more complicated than we thought, that the side effects are harder to manage, and that's a healthy outcome that will make it easier to do the management. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids.